Heavy metal rock.
Global mind.
So into you, I can't think of nothing else. Thinking how it's gonna be whenever I get you next to me. It's gonna be good, don't you know?
All right. So listen, I want to thank you for your time. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We're talking with the coach, Rodney Justo, who's the original singer from the Atlanta Rhythm section. For fans of the band from before, we have a varied amount of audience that listens that read their stuff. So there's younger fans that listen to our stuff and read our articles, and there's also the older generation of fans from that era that would definitely remember the band and a lot of the hits that they had in the 70s, especially.
Certainly the older ones, yes.
The older ones, right. But we're going to talk about a lot of the history when, when you came into the band, and even before that. I've been told that you have a lot of really interesting stories from years in the industry. So,
really,
I want you to enlighten me in some of this stuff because I've gone back and read some of your interviews and things that you've done, and I'm very interested to know before you came into the Atlanta Rhythm section, how you got into the music industry and kind of from there your influences and how it all came together for you before you came into the Atlanta Rhythm section in that first record. So if you don't mind, for people that they're not familiar with your work or the stuff.
No, my life's an open book.
Well, yeah, take us to kind of how it all started. How did you get into the music business?
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I sang as a kid on the radio. Now that right away lets you know there was no television, so you must really be old. But for some reason it just ended, and I think I was in the 6th grade, and in school, and they said, "Okay, we're going to sing so and so," and they were singing a song called "Cool Water." Old Roy Rogers song. You mean all day up home with the barren waste without the taste of water, cool water, water, and they asked me to sing. So I sang, and all the other kids were like, "Whoa, hey man, you can sing, wow!" And that was it. 6th grade, I'm pretty cool. Never sang again. Well, fast forward to the 10th grade, and I was given a snare drum. And I wanted to be a drummer. I got a snare drum. My father was a very typical Spaniard who liked quiet. He wasn't one for much noise. And I realize now what a sacrifice it was for him to get me a drum, because I beat that damn thing all day long. So anyway, blah, 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 I thought I was going to be a drummer. I ended up being a singer, and put a band together. And Denny's just like anything in life, I guess. You want to be, the best singer, best band in your school. Of course, back then there weren't many bands to challenge you. Best band in your school. Then you want to be the best in the city. Then the best in the state. Oh, let's be the best in the world, But I got lucky and I'd put a really good band together. One time I had 11 guys, a big R&B band. And my band would back up all the artists that came into the west coast of Florida, which at that time really meant Clearwater, Florida, because they had a big facility. People have to understand that, 60-something years ago, there was no bands that were famous.
Right.
They were all single artists. You had Gene Pitney, you had Roy Orbison, you had Bobby V, you had Fabian, you had Gene Pitney, you had Neil Sedaka. So anybody that had a new record out came to Central Florida. My band backed them up. So I really essentially got to know so many people in the business. One of them being Roy Orbison. And later on, Roy was the first guy, to my knowledge, with the other possibility being Bobby V, that traveled with their own band. and I got to be friends with those guys. And I had backed Roy up previously. So the rhythm guitar player and singer in that band was Bobby Goldsboro. Bobby Goldsboro had a hit record, so he left the band. Now, the other guys that are left go, well, Roy doesn't work as much as we like. We want to be a band that can work when he's not working. So I took Bobby's place with Orbison. And, that band, here I'm 20 years old. Next thing you know, I'm traveling all over the world with Roy. I mean, it was such a great experience.
Yeah.
So that band, we got to be really, really good. And we became like the darlings of New York City, and a lot of artists would come hear us play. And we started recording on our own. That band was called the Candymen because of Roy Orbison having a band called Candyman. And so the Candymen get pretty good, but like most bands, you break up. And I'm home and I get a phone call from my buddy Bowie. Buddy Bowie had a dream. First of all, he was building a studio. And the part of the studio was that he would be able to entice artists to come record in his studio. And they would say, well, what are we going to use for a band, for musicians? He said, well, we have our own, there's the Atlanta Rhythm Section, which was us before we were the Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Right.
We were referred to being what we were before what we were. So that's how that came about. And I was there because Buddy called me at home. And Buddy had heard an album called Super Sessions with Al Cooper, Stephen Stills, and Mike Bloomfield. He says, if this is Super Sessions, why can't there be a super band? So I want to get all the best musicians in the South. Of course, we're going to be a vehicle for his songs as well. And he called me up and asked me if I would participate. And I said, sure. With trepidation, because I was I didn't want to leave Tampa. I grew up here. My family's here. My friends are here. I talked to my father. I said, Pop, I got a call and move to Atlanta. I'm a little reluctant. He said, no, son. Your family is your wife and your children. That's not me. And it's not me. You go where the work is. So that's how I ended up in Atlanta, and the Atlanta Rhythm Section became the Atlanta Rhythm Section.
Gotcha. And reading in some of this, you're talking about Buddy Bowie, right?
Yeah.
Talking about. And Studio One, I'm assuming, is what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yeah. There was no Studio One. We pitched in to help build it. I'm laying tile and putting soundproofing on the wall. I did everything except for mess with the glass. I'm not touching anything with glass. But everything else, I know that I helped out. I don't think Barry did. JR might have. Robert, maybe. Dean, no. And Paul, no. But regardless, I like to say that we helped build the actual studio.
That's awesome. Yeah, of course, I'm familiar with Studio One. I mean, there's a lot of great records that came out of there, especially bands like Leonard Skinner and 38 Special, and a ton of them, right? So,
yes.
And obviously this stuff was before my era, but I'm a big fan. I have to confess, I'm a big fan of Rick Beato. I don't know if you follow some of his stuff. Rick is well known in the music industry for producing a lot of stuff too, and he's a very well famous YouTuber now because he does a lot of great interviews with bands and people from yesteryear and from the rock industry. And I've learned a lot of stuff from him because there's a lot of stuff is before my era, but I'm a music connoisseur. I listen to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, of course. That's what you should do.
Exactly. So, I've learned things from him, and he lives there in Georgia. So he's always talking about Studio One and some of these famous places there. So I've learned a lot of stuff from him. But anyways, for people that do listen to his stuff, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, I encourage folks to go back and find out just how much stuff was produced there and engineered there. And it's also a cool story that you guys were, just great session players originally, and then that it essentially became the Atlanta Rhythm Section, spearheaded by what you're saying, Buddy Bowie, who was, from my recollection and stuff that I read on him, he was a notorious songwriter as well over the years.
Well, that's, if you ask Buddy what he was, he'll tell you he's a songwriter.
Yeah,
That's what he thought he primarily was and wanted to be. He wanted to be known as a songwriter.
right. Right, exactly. Yeah, so again, that was another. He was integral part to a lot of different bands. He wrote a lot of stuff
Yeah.
for a lot of different people, including ARS. That's cool. I'm glad you kind of explained that. So take me kind of back. So you said something. So the last name, and you said Spaniard. So this piqued my interest because my parents are Cuban. I'm Cuban American. So the Justo,
Look at you.
yeah, the Justo in Spanish means justo, which means fair,
Right.
right?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I was kind of interested. So your dad was from, both of them were from Spain, or just your dad?
My whole family's from Spain. My mother's family is from Asturias, and my father's family is from Galicia.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I make the trek occasionally,
Yeah.
go visit family and what have you.
I didn't know that. That's a nice little nugget there. Well, that's great.
I must tell you, everybody thinks I'm Italian. My whole life, people think I'm Italian and think
Yeah.
I'm from New York. This is from I'm a kid.
Yeah.
Something about me looks very. By the way, I go to Spain and people come up and speak to me in Italian.
Well, my dad used to get the same thing. He has a twin, that Cuban, but he looked, ancestry was from Spain as well, but he looked Italian, or like he didn't look.
Yeah.
It looked like he was from Spain, And
And
I
where's his family from?
his family is also from Spain, and then
mean,
they
where?
migrated over. I believe they were from the southern part of Spain. I don't know the city. I've never been, but
Andalusia, yeah. It's
yeah, my mother's side
here's
too.
the great thing about Spain. You go to Germany, Germany looks like Germany everywhere. You go to Italy, Italy looks like Italy. Spain doesn't have that. You got all the beaches and all that stuff. You could be like Miami. The center of the state has almost like desert. It's arid, and the northern part, it has it's green like Ireland. So Spain has different cultures. And you have cities like Granada. It's all Moorish looking. It's really interesting. I love going to Spain.
That's interesting that you mentioned that. But I read that in an interview too, and I was going to ask you about it because I figured it was probably from Spain. So that's cool.
Yeah, a Spanish kid in a southern rock band, as it were.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you were in New York. So let's go back before all that. So before, right around the time that you were out with Roy Orbison and stuff, I've read in interviews some of the things that you've learned just from him. I mean, this is a very well-known artist at the time. Obviously, he was pretty big. You explain, and people should understand this. Again, we'll reiterate, back in those days, like you were saying, it's a single artist, and then you had the backing band. It wasn't, just a whole band going on tour like it's now and has been for years, but times were different then, the way they did stuff. So I guess it's kind of take me from, you're a young kid back then. What kind of stuff did you learn from him? Because I mean, that had to be a pretty big deal when you came on with.
Well, I'll tell you, people ask me that occasionally, and it's not like I learned how to sing from Roy.
Sure.
Even though he's a great singer, and I love being next to him. And who knows if I like to think it would have happened anyway, but Roy was such a good guy. He was just a good guy, and he would take time to speak with anyone. He was just very generous with his time. He was a great listener. He had an unbelievable sense of humor. People don't know about him, but he loved to laugh, and he had a laugh that was like a cackle. And I don't know how he didn't fire us. I really don't know how he didn't fire us, because we used to do stuff to him. He didn't drink, or maybe, I think later on he drank, but at that time he didn't drink. I remember we were in Scotland, we started messing with him. We got him drunk. We got him drinking a drink that we learned how to drink in Bossier City, Louisiana. And we got him drunk on something called Pick Me Up Charlie's, which was a shot of brandy. Let's see, a lemon across that, a cube of sugar, and then I guess we poured something on top of that made it be able to light up. So we introduced him to those drinks, and he got wasted, man. And we put him down to bed, and we're like thumping him on the chest like this. We had so much fun with him, man. He was laughing so hard, and we would come up with scenarios. He said, "No, I don't believe it." Everything we would say, "I don't believe it." He said, "Even if you prove it, I won't believe it." You know, but he was such a good guy. You know, he told me one time, we were in Nashville for some reason, and I don't think it was ARS. It must have been the Candyman. And he comes by the hotel. He was driving an Excalibur because he loved cars. And he says, Rodney Justo, he called it Rodney Justy. Okay. He says, Rodney, you know, there ain't but three things in my life that really ever hurt me. He says, Claudette getting killed in front of me, my boys dying in that fire, and the Candyman leaving me. I said, Roy, enough of nothing, but I don't think we belong in that category. You need to come up with something else that's pretty drastic, you know. But he used to say, he used to tell the band, we all know that if y'all get a hit record, Rodney's going to leave, just like Goldie done me. Oh, okay.
It sounded like you had a pretty good chemistry with him.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, this is not a new story, but I could tell you that Roy back then, and I bet he always did it. He used to tell the corniest jokes in the world. Okay, like thank you all. You all have to excuse me. I had a frog in my throat. In fact, that's what I had for lunch. It's all I've had, and I just flew in today. My arms are tired. What are some of the others? I normally travel with a bigger band, but when we crossed the border, we had a fruit inspection. These are the only guys that made it. So one night we're playing in Atlanta, and we came on and played before he came on. I told every one of his jokes before he came on stage. So when he came on, he told the same jokes. The audience is looking like, what the hell is he doing?
We've heard this before.
And you know, it's like I said, it's, you know, he should have fired us, but he appreciated the humor, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good that you had, you know, boss man who could, you know, didn't take himself too serious, and you know, I mean, that helps with, you know, when you're a young guy and, you know, he's an established musician, you know, it's just, you know, that's part of the chemistry, I suppose, right? It helped with some of that, because I can assume, I mean, some people may have been intimidated by going on the road with somebody of that stature, or pressured, you know, to perform every night, right? I would think.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, without sounding too obnoxious, I had worked with virtually everybody in the business, and I really didn't think any of them sang any better than me. I'd worked with all of them, you know, and some of them were really good. You know, Gene Pitney was really good. Orbison was really good. Frankie Valli was really good. You know, I worked a lot with a guy named Steve Alamo, who was from Miami, and he had one hit record, and he had so many records that should have been hits. You know.
Yeah.
He sang all kinds of songs. He was great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a great entertainer too, as well.
Yeah, that's the other part too. I mean, it's one thing to have the talent to, you know, you play the instrument or perform or sing, but also, you know, you're an entertainer. That's the other thing that comes with being a great.
Yeah, and they were all of them, you know, good guys, cooperative. You know, Del Shannon, when I was getting ready to make my first record, he tells me, he says, Rodney, you need to be confident, because believe me, everybody in that room wishes they were you. I thought that was such a nice thing to tell me. You know,
I was going to ask you about that. That record that you made, the solo one that you made with.
Yeah.
Talk about how that happened, and you know, around what year was that?
I was 19. It was 1964.
Okay.
That came about. Roy wanted to produce me as an artist. Like I said, this before I was even in a band, so you can understand I had some connection with them. And I know this to be true because it was my 19th birthday. I sang at a show as a single artist that Buddy Bowie had produced. So the show was Roy Orbison, Ray Stevens, Bobby Goldsboro, a local band, and many others. That was me. I was Minnie. So that was February 8th. February 9th was the first time the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
All right. Now, my recording session was the 11th, February 11th. I said, I'm one of these guys, by the way, that I don't forget anything. It's really weird. But so they're on the 9th, and I'm listening to the Beatles, and I'm going, oh, this thing I'm going to record has got no chance. That doesn't mean I'm not grateful and I'm going to do my best. Okay. The 10th, Ray Stevens took me to a Jerry Lee Lewis recording session.
Okay, yeah.
So I watched Jerry Lee Lewis, and he's tearing it up, man. He's like, oh my gosh, look at this guy go. So then my session comes on the 11th, and I start singing, and the arranger and really the producer was a guy named Bill Justice. We had a hit record, an instrumental called Raunchy when I was a kid. And he was a riot. This guy was funny. He says, okay, you stand over here, sing there into that microphone. If you sing anything on pitch, a dunce cap will fall down and hit you on the head. Okay. She said, by the way, no one's done it in the past 5 years. In other words, nobody sings on pitch. And by the way, that session was no headphones.
Oh, wow.
It was just a band out there, and I'm singing, and now I start singing, and Bill Justice tells me, he says, you need to sound a little whiter. I want you to sing more like Bobby Rydell. So, all right. So I sing like whatever, just whiten it up a little bit. The songs I sang were written by Fred Carter.
Okay.
His daughter is Dina Carter, who's a pretty big country artist. Yep. But Roy was a very, very loyal kind of guy. And I mentioned that artists would come in by themselves. Occasionally, one would have a drummer with them or a guitar player. And Roy, for that first tour, the first time I ever met him, he traveled with a guitar player named Fred Carter. So, as a act of generosity, he had me recording 3 Fred Carter songs. Okay, so that's how those songs came about. It wasn't like, hey, I got these great songs for you. They weren't so popular. But I knew that my record had no chance. But that's okay. I mean, I got my foot in the door. I'm meeting people. Ray Stevens took me to a date. So I was pretty, even though I knew it wasn't going to be a hit, I still consider myself fortunate and still do.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, that's a good learning experience to go into production studio, recording studio, and do that professionally. That's your first, thing. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you a couple of things about. So once you had your experience there with Roy, you became pretty good friends with him. You explained about the Buddy Bowie connection there and how all that came about with ARS. I guess, I mean, people know you were there with the first record. That was the first album, the debut from them. You sang on. Do you have any songs or recollection from that recording, things that that are most memorable from when you recorded that record?
I remember everything, but I can when I think about making that record, one story comes to my mind. First of all, it took 2 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, because we're recording other acts, every day or so, we start recording these songs. So to get them written, put together, arranged, what have you, and then it came time for me to sing. I had to sing them all in like a day and a half or 2 days. And at one point, I remember, I think it was, I was singing Baby No Lie. And I looked up in the control booth, and Buddy Bowie, they're carrying on and having a good time. And it would occur to me, I said, hey, I'm singing, nobody's listening. What the hell is this about? So I started singing like Jerry Lewis. And still nobody noticed. Okay. I'm being a fool. The only one that really remembered it was Rodney Mills, our engineer. He's a beautiful guy. And I hadn't seen him in so many years. I always felt like if there's one thing that I miss the most about leaving to go to New York, was I was good friends with these guys, especially Rodney Mills and J.R. Cobb. J.R. Cobb, he and his wife are just beautiful people. They'd always have me over to eat, with my kids. They didn't have kids. Now, I don't know if you're married with children. Most people that don't have children don't invite people over with children.
Yeah. Right.
They got their own life that they like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't include children. But they were sweet. Of course, my children were very well behaved. But like I said, I always regretted that it put some distance between us. Not that if I see either one of them, well, JR's gone, but Rodney Mills, I see Rodney Mills is like I saw him yesterday. He and his wife, they're very generous, good people.
Gotcha. Are you still living in Tampa, or you're somewhere?
Yeah, I live in Tampa, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned I'm sure you've been asked this question before. I mean, you were with the band the 1 year, the one album, took 2 years to make. I went back and listened to that record a few times, and I don't know the discord between some of the longtime ARS fans, because there's some songs on that album from listening to it. It wasn't probably as more mainstream stuff. I would say mainstream. I don't want to call it mainstream. The more popular songs like So Into You and stuff like that. It wasn't up to that point yet, but I would say that was more of a polished sound later on when you were out of the band. But I think you've said in interviews before, you don't really have regrets because you moved to New York. You were trying to pursue better opportunities for your career. And at that time, when that first record came out, it just wasn't happening for the guys yet at that time, right? So I guess
I didn't have the songs. The songs are everything. We didn't have them. Buddy knew it. Buddy, I can't say apologized to me because that wouldn't be fair. But I had a lot of talks with Buddy Bowie. We remained friends. He wasn't thrilled when I left. But regardless, if I came back to Atlanta, I went to see him. I always stayed in contact with Buddy. And the guys, they came to Tampa or anywhere near me, I went to see them. There was a couple records came out that weren't them. I thought it was them. I said, oh, this is beautiful. They got a hit record. One that comes to mind is She's Just a Devil Woman with Evil on Her Mind. It sounds so much like an Atlanta Rhythm Section record to me. So I heard it. I said, oh, I'm so happy these guys are having a hit. People think that it was sort of a competition between me and them. That's not the case. We were friends, always been friends, always, still would have been.
Right. Yeah, and of course Ronnie Hammond's he's the voice that is associated that most people will remember, obviously, with some of the hits songs. And you've told the story because I've read this too, that he was kind of how he came into the band. He was hanging around the studio there a lot. That's kind of, I don't know if he was like an engineer or he was involved in that part of it before he was brought on board, right? As a singer.
Well, Ronnie was actually managed and represented by Rodney Mills, our engineer.
Wow.
So Rodney had always envisioned something with Ronnie, and You know, technically he had control over Rodney, but Buddy, you know, heard him sing and says, "Okay, you're the new singer for the Atlanta Rhythm Section." And Rodney is like, whatever. He never even asked me anything. But next thing you know, Rodney was gone. And you know, when they were, like I said, they weren't happy about me leaving. But I said, "You know, you guys got Ronnie. Why don't you hire Ronnie? Ronnie would be great." Which was Spanish for "Don't sue me."
Nice. Well, I can imagine that, you know, from Buddy's side, you know, as a business person, also I can see why he would be a little, you know, irked about you leaving. But again, at the same time, I don't know, did you have a family at that point before you went to New York? I think you said you did. You had a
Yes, yeah. My wife and two daughters. She was Puerto Rican Jewish, so she went to Puerto Rico,
Oh, wow.
and our marriage wasn't the strongest at that point. So she went to Puerto Rico. I went to New York to get established with the intention of getting her up there when I thought it was going to be financially possible.
Yeah.
You
So I mean,
know,
you have to do what you have to do for your family. I mean, you know, that's kind of the thing, right? So you go on this journey from, you know, you're there with the band, you do the first record, then, you know, you move on, and, you know, later on, obviously they release, you know, all these different albums, and, you know, they had a pretty big notoriety in the 70s, pretty popular for fans
well,
of.
they had Doraville, which kept them alive for a while, but you know, nothing was happening. They're releasing these albums, and some of them were great. I love Dog Days. You know, then they had a very rocking album called Red Tape. When Rock and Roll Alternative came out, they were this close to being dropped by the label. Luckily, So Into You happened, or there would have been probably no more Atlanta Rhythm Section. You know, but I told someone earlier today, you know, you listen to A Hard Day's Night and you hear that first chord, you know that it's going to be the Beatles, it's going to be A Hard Day's Night. Well, I think it's the same way with So Into You. You hear that first note that they play on the piano, Dean Daughtry, with the guitars playing. I went, oh, Atlanta Rhythm Section. You know, that's So Into You. All it takes is one note.
Right. Yeah, and you know, I had some questions to tie in with that. I've always, you know, I'll say from well, I'll use Foreigner as the current this incarnation of Foreigner that we have left, which some people, I'm not of that opinion. This is not my opinion. This is what I hear from other people. You know, they'll say there's just a tribute band or whatever because most of the original members are not there. But I can say from covering that band over the years with, you know, with Kelly, the vocalist, who's the current vocalist, they sound great live. They do the songs justice, and in the end, it's about the songs, right? Because these you have, you know, ARS and a lot of these, I call them legacy bands. That's all what I coined them. I'm sure I'm not the only one that calls them that, but bands before my time, the songs have lasted generations. You know, whether you hear them, you still hear them on classical
Yes,
radio, or you know from your family,
right.
your dad.
That's my point from earlier. It's all about the songs.
Exactly. It's all about the songs. Yeah. So the songs, if you can still, you know, then people obviously they're hungry to hear these songs because they relate to the songs. They were songs from their childhood, growing up, whether they were in high school or, you know, whatever. People associate all these different things to different songs, right, throughout their lives for whatever the reason. They're personal. A lot of times they're personal. But the songs last. I mean, if you think about it, you know, 50 years. I mean, that's a long time, and people still know these songs. You know, they go out to the concerts to
Look,
hear.
man, you know, you mentioned Foreigner. Well, Lou Graham is gone. In fact, you know, he had bad throat problems. I think he's singing again now. But this guy, Carey, he does a really good job.
Mhm.
They sound like Foreigner. You can call them what you want to call them. But if there's no more Foreigner, where are you going to go to hear Foreigner songs?
Right.
It's got to be Foreigner. You know, tribute, schmibute. You know, we get that. I get a lot of that as well, and I understand. But again, you know, I always try to watch what I say. But this band was built around me and Barry. That was the point of the band, me and Barry. So, you know, we get the tribute band thing, but my answer to that always is, I asked people if they're sports fans. They say, yeah. So, let's say baseball. Who do you like in baseball? So, I'm a Yankees fan, man. Yankees all the way. What about, I'll be damned, what a coincidence. Me too. But yet, I went to a Yankees game last year. I hate to be a jerk, but there's no Babe Ruth, no Lou Gehrig, no Joe DiMaggio, not even Mickey Mantle. Come on. So these are like the tribute Yankees. You know, seriously, if you're going to go see a band that you loved 50 years ago, do you think that you're going to see the same guys that were in a band 50 years ago?
Of course not.
I mean, come on. Give me a break. They leave, they die, they get sick, they quit, they broke, they kill themselves. You know, I have quite honestly said that I've become, for lack of a better word, the caretaker. You know, Buddy Boo called me to come back in the band. He didn't say, I want you to come back to a tribute band. He said, I want you to come back to the Atlanta Rhythm section. We'll have you, Paul Goddard, and Dean. Half the band is original. Come on. Oh, all right. Well, what will she have done? When Paul died, she would have said, oh, I guess we got to break up the band. No, you find a replacement. You know, this is what it's all about, finding replacements. I was in the early versions of the band. You may not know, but in 1983, I went back with the band for a year.
First, yeah, so brief stint, right? Yeah.
I don't recall ever having an encore. I don't recall ever having a standing ovation. There's very few dates, so we don't have both with the new band. You know, and, you know, when I came back in the band, we were doing essentially the same show we did in 1983. I went, what the hell? Has nothing happened since then? Well, my goal was, I'm not trying to take credit for it personally, but, you know, the guys had some sort of faith in me or understood what I was getting at. I think that we should have a different show available for wherever we're playing. You know, if we're playing part of a Skinner tour, you know, we're not going to do it or die. You know, that's not what they want to hear, even though it's a top 20 record. In fact, Do It or Die, the band hadn't done it in 40, 50 years. You know, so, but there's certain venues that song goes over great. So, you know, we have a show designed for wherever we play. Don't get me wrong. You know, there's about 7 songs you're going to hear no matter what.
Right, of course.
Yeah, we have to do those hits, and you're going to hear them. But, you know, we mess around with the rest of it based on what we think the audience is going to like or what the audience is comprised of. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, the different, you know, it could be different fans from different ages or whatever, different parts of the country. I was looking at the touring schedule for this year for Atlanta Rhythm Section. I mean, you guys are staying pretty busy from what I can tell.
Yes. To be honest with you, I don't want to work that much. I don't do it for the money. I don't care about the money. Not that I don't want the money, but I like playing. I like traveling. I like meeting people. I don't care what you hear. I've always said it's all about the people you meet. You know, I have met wonderful people. Some of them become very friendly. Some of them that, you know, so many generous people. That's for me. That's what it's all about. My favorite part of the show, you can ask the guys, is after the show when we sign merchandise, sell merchandise, what have you. You meet people. I love messing with the people. I feel good when people say, I just lived my entire college experience tonight. Thank you. Even though they're listening to Ronnie Hammond sing, not me. Right. It doesn't matter. I'm carrying a memory.
Right.
You know, so I'm very grateful. I really enjoy playing. I enjoy getting out. I never thought I was going to sing again, but here I am.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know where I was going with this is the show here. So I'm locally, I'm in Huntsville, but you know our magazine, we cover stuff all over the country and overseas. So
yeah, you say you're in Huntsville?
We're in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm in Huntsville.
Okay, all right. Well, We'll
Yeah,
be
so
there next week.
well, that's right, and I'm going to be there at that show. I go out to shows like a lot of our guys and girls that do stuff for us. You know, we take pictures, we write reviews. You know, it's a pretty big conglomerate thing, right? We've been doing this for like 16 years, so it's
Oh,
you know we got people all over the place.
great. Wait, I think it's sold out or damn close to being sold out.
It's very close to being sold out. So for everybody watching this, when it goes live, the show is on June 28th at Mars Music Hall downtown in Huntsville. And yeah, it's pretty packed. It's a nice, it's a newer mid-sized venue here.
Yeah, yeah. I feel bad for David Anderson, our guitar player, because he lives in Huntsville, you know.
Oh,
And
really?
oh, absolutely. He's like an icon there,
Okay.
you know. But I always say money is relative. The more money you have, the more relatives you have. You know?
Yeah,
So I'm sure he's got a lot of best friends looking for free
yeah,
tickets.
that's right. That's
People
right.
don't understand we only get so many of them, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah. What I was saying is for anybody that they'll be watching this from here to before the show, if there's still tickets left, go out to the show. I always say this on, you know, whether it's me doing the interviews or the other folks that do stuff for us, if you're checking out a legacy band, as I call them, and you have kids, you know, your kids maybe, I don't know, maybe they're teenagers, maybe they're not, maybe they're, you know, younger than that. I take them out to the shows just because you know, like I said before, I'm just a big music fan overall, right? You know, when I was a kid, I was introduced to bands like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and stuff like that. You know, and I'm 41 now, but when I was just a kid and like, you know, 8 years old, I was listening to this stuff and I was blown away by that music. So it kind of just consumed my life. It's, you know, just a
Yeah.
rock. It's been a big rock fan, which is part of the reason why we started this magazine years ago to promote the genres, the different genres of it. But I always say, take your kids out to these shows because we don't know how much longer some of these, you know, long running bands are going to be able to keep doing this.
Exactly.
And I always say, take them out. Yes, it's nostalgic for a lot of, you know, fans from that era, but it's also a way to introduce your kids to that music that dominated during a different era. And you know, the times are so much different now when it comes to music, the music industry, and it's hard for a lot of musicians coming up to make
Yeah.
any kind of living, you know.
It's a hard life. Don't let anybody tell you any different.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm
It's not
sure
like being a dentist.
right. Exactly. And I say that all the time when, you know, when I'm speaking to members of bands. I said, when, you know, you're living on the road a big portion of your life. If you got a family, you don't see them most of the time, but you know, they're out there trying to make a living doing this. It's not easy in this day and age, the way that things are structured with the labels and the streaming services and all this stuff with social media, the way it,
Yeah, right.
you know,
It's
so
hard to make a living. I don't know how young people do it. You know, it's like my favorite story is about the kid who tells his mother, I want to be a musician when I grow up. She says, you can't do both.
that's that's right. Yeah, that's good. That's very honest answer. Yes, that's correct. It's very hard to do that now. But you know, in order to keep, because you know, a lot of younger generation, they're probably, I don't know who Atlanta Rhythm Section is. I have no idea. That's my pop's music, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I get that. You know, sometimes I see young people at our concerts. I go, "What the hell are you doing here?" They say, you know, my father brought me. You know, I listen to classic rock. I don't listen to what's going on now. My parents brought me up listening to, you know, real music.
Exactly. Well, and that's what I call it too. I think that, you know, a big part of it was back in that era. I mean, the music was recorded different, right? We didn't have the technology we have now. If you look at it from the perspective of engineering or production wise, things were a lot more difficult because they didn't have the tools then. There was a lot of manual stuff that was done back then.
Yeah, and more real. You know, if
Exactly.
I think all the time when I hear records now, two things. First of all, if you listen to records, you can hear when you move your fingers on a string, you can hear your fingers moving on a guitar string sometimes. The other thing I think about is the Zombies had a record. She's not there. Oh, no one told me about her. And there's a section, and you hear that guy taking a deep breath. You will never hear that on a new record because they limit that. They get it out. They erase it.
Yeah.
You know, and a little lack of perfection that makes music what it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I
And
don't like the perfection.
well, this had that more. I mean, I guess the word I'm looking for is, I guess, genuine feel, I guess, and also, from stuff that recordings then, especially when it comes to musicians just playing the guitar or something like that, it's in the way they feel. It's just a feel, right? So everybody plays certain instrument their own way, and part of that is what makes that sound of that whatever band unique. Where nowadays
Yes, exactly.
a
It's
lot of
like style. I was singing with a guy named Roy Buchanan when we started talking about singers, what have you, and guitar players.
yeah.
He said, I was talking about style. He says, Rodney, people develop style because they can't do it the other way. In other words, you want to play like somebody, but you can't do it. So you find your way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with singing. You can't sing like Johnny Mathis. So you sing some other way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing where I was going with this is also and I'm not speaking for every band that makes music. I know it's not always like that, but some cases it's more, the sound comes across more synthetic and more manufactured than it used to be in those days, when music was recorded. And I think that's some of the beef that I have with some of that. I don't know if it shortcuts some of the actual performances or the way the sound comes across, but I'm not a production engineer. I'm just things that I pick up from listening to music and a lot of the promos that we get and things that that we've been getting for years. It's a small gripe, but I think that, again, going back to legacy bands, it's just the way they play the music. Like you were saying, it's all about the songs. I mean, that's why they lasted
Denny's, we
generations.
can talk about those all day long, and it's all going to go back to something we said earlier.
Yeah,
It's all about the
it's all
songs.
about the songs, exactly.
Okay, these songs are now. You think that someone's going to be singing them 50 years from now? No, I don't think so.
The AI will be singing.
Yeah, that's right.
That's where everything's going now. It's all artificial intelligence, and we're going to be having a robot making music. So yeah, that's where we're going.
You know, I'm talking about Roy's band, the Candymen. We were the second band in the world to use a Mellotron. And the Mellotron we used was John Lennon's Mellotron. They had just recorded Strawberry Fields. That intro, that's a Mellotron. And what the Mellotron did was a collection of tapes. They had literally recorded a trumpet, a harp, a trombone. And if you press a button that says trombone, and then you press a C, and you got a trombone playing the C note. And it'll last for like 7 seconds, so the tape ran out. So we recorded with it. We came back and we talked to Orbison about it, about the Mellotron. He says, Rodney, someday you'll be able to do something like that. Have a brand new Buddy Holly record. They'll record every word he said, every note he sang, and mix them all together. And man, we're talking 1967.
Yeah.
He's telling me this. You could put a brand new record together of Buddy Holly. It'll sound just like him. No one will ever know the difference. And damn if it isn't true.
It's true. Yeah, that's a good prophecy though. It's come to fruition.
Yeah, right.
Many years later. I had a couple of the things I was going to ask you. When you came back in the band with ARS, did you find it difficult to sing some of the songs the hits or some of these other songs that you guys play that are not maybe as popular? Did you have a hard time adjusting to his voice, how he sang the songs, or it was just kind of a natural thing?
Well, Ronnie and I didn't sing unlike each other. I've listened to songs of his. I thought it was me. Crazy is one that really comes to my mind. Sounds a lot like me. I remember Robert Nix telling me, dude, you may as well have been you. The answer is no. I don't find any problem singing as a notes. The only one I've always had a problem with, and still do, is I'm not going to let it bother me tonight. A lot of singers have, when you're trying to find a key to sing a song in, there's too high or too low. So you try to find one that's good for you. Well, sometimes you find one that's not high enough or not low enough. and that one is right in the middle for me, and it's pain. Ronnie and the Sedeli sang it in a lower key on the road, but that's the only one that was a little bit problematic for me.
Gotcha. Well, that's good. And I mean, it's not like this is not a new thing. I mean, you've been you came back into the band a while ago, so you've been getting out there on the road, and the legacy of the band keeps going. Like you're saying, you consider yourself kind of the caretaker of the band.
Well, it's funny you keep saying legacy. When I spoke with Buddy Bowie about coming back, that was kind of the area of the conversation. He's like, well, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it? You're part of the band's legacy. Oh, okay, so whatever.
Well, I mean, you are, and I mean, yeah, if it's one album, but I look at it from the perspective of, well, yeah, you had the one studio album, but I mean, you're playing these songs, and people want to go out and listen to you play these songs. So obviously, you must be doing something right.
Yeah, the band has, listen, the truth be known, as long as we can put one foot in front of the other, we can work. Because if some of the songs live on, people want to hear them. They want to hear whatever the version is of the band that is doing those songs. As long as we can do So Into You, Imaginary Lover, Spooky, Champagne Jam, Do It or Die, Not Gonna Let It Bother Me Tonight. I guess there's 7 or 8 songs we have to do. We've played shows where we've done 2 songs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's it. Sometimes we play a show and there's a bunch of acts, we play 4 or 5 songs. That's it. I hate it. I want to work.
Right. Well,
sometimes in the old days, the ideal gig would be a gig that we went to, we got rained out and got paid anyway. We didn't have to play. I'm the opposite. If I'm leaving my house, I want to work.
Yeah, I get it.
When a gig is rained out, it's not a lot of work. It's just people have done for nothing.
Well, I can attest, at least from experience-wise, in terms of going out and seeing some of the bands like ARS. I'll give you an example. I think it wasn't that long ago. I was at the show where 38 Special actually opened for George Thorogood, and again,
what?
Yes, for George Thorogood. Yeah, they played in a place here close to Huntsville. It's called Albertville, Alabama, and there's an amphitheater there, and we went there to cover the show, take pictures or whatever. But it was a great show. Like, I've never seen 38 Special before. Again, a band.
They're great.
They're great. Yeah, they still sound great. And I have LPs, records from vinyl stuff. I'm a vinyl collector, like a lot of people are still these days. And I have some 38 Special stuff. I know the big hits, like a lot of people do. But they sound great live, even after all this time. They were great, fantastic.
There are a couple of bands that sound better without the original guys. I'm not going to tell you who they are. Okay, but there's quite a few of them out there. When you replace a guy, you hope that you're replacing someone at least as good as the guy that left. Sometimes you replace with a guy that's better.
Exactly.
Yeah. It happens.
It happens. Yeah, I agree. And it goes for the different genres of rock. Whether it's we cover heavier stuff too, and metal and stuff like that. But that happens a lot for hard rock acts. When there's conflict or the singer passes away or whatever, they bring in somebody who's worthy of singing the songs. Like we were saying before, if you can do the songs justice, people will go out and still watch the shows.
Like you mentioned, Foreigner, I cannot imagine the crap that Kerry gets. You know what I mean? And he does a good job. Now, I will say they're a little bit too Las Vegas-y for me. But that doesn't matter. How they sound. They sound great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I encourage everybody to come out to this show here in Huntsville coming up on June 28th. I think it's going to be a great show. I hope it sells out. It's pretty close to that. Like I said, it's a really good venue. I'll be there. I'll look forward. Maybe we can meet before or after the show. Maybe if I'll talk. I'll talk.
I think I'm coming in day of show, but absolutely, let's get together. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like to say hi after. My wife, and maybe we can meet and stuff. But I'm at a lot of the local shows here. I cover like a lot of our folks that do stuff for us in different cities. Photographers go out and they shoot, take pictures and they write reviews and stuff. So I'll be at this show on June 28th, And if
Beautiful.
I encourage everybody to get out and go watch Atlanta Rhythm Section. For anybody that hasn't seen the band, you're gonna remember some of these songs, whether it's from
You're
your.
gonna have a great time. I promise you.
You're
We
gonna have
leave everything on the stage. We don't wear funny hats and all that kind of crap. You know, and there's no choreography, but we play the songs with integrity. You know, we play them like they are supposed to be done, and have a good time. You know, we have respect for the audience.
Absolutely. Well, Rodney, I want to thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed our conversation. You definitely have some stories, I would tell you that. And all the stuff I've read about you is that you've had some really interesting life,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
music and outside of music. And I think it's cool. You know, we get a chance to meet a lot of people that are in the industry and just fans, you know, that are at shows. Like we talked about, you know, you enjoy meeting the fans after the show and then telling you stories about how
absolutely,
they grew up with the band
absolutely.
and stuff like that. That's what I enjoy about going to the shows because we meet fans all the time that come up to us and say, "Hey, you know, that's cool. Like, how did you know? How do you know this band from what time? You know, you look like a younger guy, but you're obviously here, you know, so you must know the band." It's like, yeah, because we enjoy music in general, and you know, we want to promote it and want to.
You know, I've
Uh,
always been reluctant. It's a little egocentric to talk about fans. You know, especially when I'm talking about myself.
mhm.
Um, I tend to think in terms of friends. You know, I'm not trying to make fans. I'm trying to make friends. You know, people I meet who enjoy seeing. You know, I got a message yesterday. We're getting ready to go to some place. Guys, hey, why don't you guys come over to my house? That would be great. I don't think we're going to do it because I got enough trouble getting to the gig, much less going to somebody else's house to get back for sound check, and they get to it. You know, I don't think that's in the cards. But the guy's offering. He wouldn't be offering if he didn't like us personally. You know, so
Absolutely,
you
well
know,
said.
like I said, it's all about the people you meet.
Exactly, people you meet and those relationships that last, you know, a long time.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
Well, listen, Rodney, thank you again, and many blessings to you. And I wish you good health. And you know, hopefully, we can meet after the show. And I'm sure it's going to be a great
I
show.
hope so, man. I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate
Okay,
your
man.
time.
All right. Be good to yourself. Adios.
Adios.
Heavy metal rock. Global mind.